Yes, yes, y'all. It is another edition of the Daddy's Working podcast. If you were listening last week, then you heard part one of the interview and I left you hanging. Gosh, I'm such a tease. But we're here and we're ready to rock and roll. So let's dive back into part two of the interview. So I want to shift gears a little bit because I hear you using this word a lot. I'm sure the daddies out there understand it, but you keep talking about mentors. And so what is mentorship and how do you find good mentors?
I think you always have to be learning and finding mentors. Like you don't have to, in our world, man, we don't have to actually physically meet somebody for them to be a mentor. I love that we're in this podcast world. So I'm listening to people all the time. They're my mentor and I've never actually talked to them. I've had recently, this year is all about nutrition. So I was like, man, I suck at nutrition. I suck at that. I need to get a mentor that helps me and actually builds accountability for me. And so I think there's certain areas that we know where their specialty is and we know where our weakness is, and to find people who are excel in that area. For me now in finance and in the world that we're in, I see that most businesses fail because of cash flow, because of those challenges. And I wanted to help them. And so where I've been helped, I have a mentor in that world. He's still my mentor. He's still a coach here, and he leads another podcast. But I'm like, dude, I want to be like you, Yoda. And so I'm learning from Yoda to do whatever I can do. But you have to be looking for them.
When did you first discover that you needed mentors, or how you could use mentors, or how being in a mentor relationship could benefit you?
So I think it goes back to my childhood. I mean, a lot of times people take for granted that they have mentors around them, right? I mean, it's their parents, and either they're good mentors or bad mentors. I learned a lot of great things from my mom. She was a salesperson, so we would go out and sell these paintings of people's houses out in the country, and we'd be listening to Zig Ziglar,
Really?
old school cassette tapes, and I would be listening to that stuff, and so I'd be watching what she was doing and learn. And I think I learned my work ethic from her. But then at the same time, I also realized and learned I don't want her to be mentoring me on what it means to have a healthy marriage. I need to find other people for that. And I think by not having those solid people really made me aware that I need to put people in places around my life to help me excel me in that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I'm thinking about it here. I don't know why. I have this buddy, and I actually recorded a couple podcast episodes for Daddy's Working where I mentioned cassette tape and mentorship and all that. But I'm thinking about my buddy who he's done so well. Like, we've been friends for a few years, and he's done so well. And all he's obsessed with is money. Like, he's got this obsession with money and dollar amount. And I need this much residual income, and that's all. Every day is a grind. He hates life, and all he thinks about is money. And he's like, I can't look. I'm like, why are you so obsessed with money? And he says to me, I felt so bad for him when he said it, but he says, look, I've worked really hard over the last 15 years to get where I am. And I know in my heart that I don't have it in me to rebuild it. So I need to keep stockpiling money. And I felt really bad for him because I'm like, I've never been motivated by money. And the only thing that really motivates me is the relationships I have with people. And I said, if I lost all of my money today, I believe that in the next 6 months, I could build it all back and better just because of people I know. And that's how I feel about mentor relationships. Having the right mentors, having the right people, they're all leading the path for you to live in excellence. I mean, maybe I'm overthinking it here. I don't know, but I'm with you. Those mentor relationships are powerful and important. And I don't know why more people don't realize this.
Well, and I think it means you have to actually be in relationship. And I feel like some level of the mentorship, again, I think there's guides that you can watch via afar and listen to them. But it also requires people in those kind of roles saying, hey, how are you doing? No, how are you doing really?
Yeah.
And holding you accountable. Like when you go and you have a fitness coach, well, they're going to know if you haven't done it over course of a few weeks and you meet up with them because they're going to be able to tell, well, you haven't done your exercise or homework because you're worse than before. You gained 5 pounds.
It's
Like,
all muscle, baby.
yeah. And I think sometimes we do need those people. And the reality, though, it's hard to build that. And in our Facebook world, we would rather show our fun Instagram pictures of ice cream versus the actual, hey, life sucks right now, or, and I need your help.
That is, dude, you don't even know this. Like 2 shows before, I did a show on vulnerability. So you wouldn't know that, of course, because it hasn't come out yet. But I recorded that, and so that brings up an interesting question. So yeah, life sucks right now. I've always felt like people sharing that kind of stuff are like attention whores. Like, look at me, pay attention to me, feel bad for me. How do you strike a balance then? Because I don't want to be putting all my garbage out there, but I know that part of that is necessary.
Well, first you have to have the relationship, right? And I think that's a key thing of you have to be in their world, being like friends or somehow. And it's not all about helping me. I think it should be a win-win scenario. Like I want to promote my mentors. I want to promote what they're doing. I think that's just as valuable. But also, I would say when we were having that challenge in our marriage, calling them up and saying, "Man, things are hard. Help us out." And I knew they wouldn't have answers, like, but it was good to have somebody that at least was there and could pray for us, could walk alongside us during that time. Same with fitness, same with business. As with my mentor in this financial world, helping me figure out problems, but also not taking up all the time on my problems. Being able to say, "Hey, and how are you doing? And how can I learn from your experience?" I think that's called relationship.
That's the other side of it, right? Because people always have their big giant hands out looking for something, but what are you also bringing to the table? And that's what I've found has helped me find most of my mentors. A lot of guys that it was just like that. Like Ben Settle, my relationship with him started, "Hey, dude, love you. Would like to do some stuff with you. Here, I saw this and I can bring this to the table." And then when I needed something, he naturally was there to help me. And I didn't do that to get
Yeah,
anything from him. It was just to tell him, "Dude, I appreciate you. Let's do something together." So how do you
I,
find mentors? What are you doing to get those guys? Are you paying them? Or are you just creeping on them on social media? What do you do?
I think there has to be some degree of reciprocity, right? Some of them I pay, and I think that's a good way of saying, "Hey, I'm not at that place of being a Yoda to you or whatever, but I value you, and so I'm going to pay you." I think that's one, and looking out and listening to the thought leaders, being a part of their world. If you are part of their world and they have a business and you like their stuff and you share their stuff, oftentimes they see that and you're going to be in their circle, and then it builds from there. I think that's where it does take time to build that, but I think it's again, and it's important. And one of my biggest pet peeves, and I had this at the coffee shop all the time because we are this hybrid coffee shop, and people would come and say, "Can I just come and pick your brain?" And I hate that. I hate that with a passion when people would just they wouldn't even buy a coffee when they come in, or they would call me and ask for advice, and I'm like, I'm going to charge for this. I'm going to become a consultant of some level. And I learned in some of this industry, and why we even went into coaching is because I had a professor tell me, "I teach entrepreneurship because I can't do what you do. So can you come teach my class and I'll give you a mug?" And I'm like, "Are you serious? These people are paying a lot of money for this education. You don't even know entrepreneurship. You're having me come and you give me a mug." Like, that frustrated me. And so that kind of led me to say, how am I just asking people, "Can I just pick your brain?" I think that's not a good way to go. So if you ever, listeners, if you're ever like at that place and you're just going to ask somebody for something and try and get all their gold and try and circumvent the pain or their 10 years of pain, maybe buy them a coffee at least. Buy them dinner before you're asking them, how can I avoid all your pain? I don't know.
Nice, nice.
That's a
I'm
good
not a
thing.
fan of the pick your brain thing either. All right, so listen, gotta pay the bills. So here is a quick advertisement for your ears that I think you're gonna find useful. How would you like to spend more time with your family and less time on your business? Before anyone chooses to do business with you, they need to know one important thing. Can I trust you? The only problem is building trust can take forever. And I know you don't have that kind of time, but what if there was a way to build trust in minutes instead of years? You'd want that, wouldn't you? Good news, buckaroo. That's exactly what you'll get inside my digital Daddy's Toolkit. It's got my top 3 speed influence tools to make you a trusted expert in any market quickly. Go to daddysworking.com/DDT to grab your copy today. So let's, you guys create this coffee shop. It takes everything out of you, but you build it up. It's successful. How do you get to the point where you're deciding, all right, we want to sell this and do something different?
Some was, we went into coffee because we wanted to change the world through the coffee farmers. We realized that poverty was increasing, and it was increasing with a lot with the coffee farmers. And so, or poverty was with the coffee farmers. And so we wanted to change the world through coffee, ethical coffee. But when it became not fun anymore, when we had a flood in our business and a lot of frustration, also we were expecting a baby, and we realized, hey, we need to make some changes. And so it was at that point we were on a year-to-year lease in the coffee shop, and we're like, we can't take this any further, and our priorities need to shift. So we sold that business, which we're lucky enough to do, and we're moved into this new world. And actually, when we sold the business, we didn't know what the heck we were going to do. I was like, well, I guess I'm going to go get a job or something, but that doesn't sound fun. I've been an entrepreneur for 8 or 9 years at the time, and now I got to go work for somebody. But then working with my mentor, that's how it kind of transitioned to working with him. Actually, I applied to work with him, and he said, you're too entrepreneurial. I can't hire you. So he fired me before he hired me. Which was kind of strange.
For your own good.
Yeah.
So your mentor is a guy in the financial world. So you were working with him when you were in a coffee shop. How did that come together?
Yeah. So we thought we were awesome. We had a business, and my wife has listened to all of Susie Orman's stuff, and she loved her, I guess, at the time. And we used to host film screenings in our cafe behind. There was an auditorium that we would film, and it was all about justice. Like, that was the main thing. And so we had met him through a church connection. He was in our office. We had built some relationship, and we were looking for experts. And we knew he had a documentary that I think it was like Banking Yourself Revolution or something. I don't know, the book or the movie by Nelson Nash. And we said, hey, could you screen this film and you be our expert? And so we had him do the filming, or do the film screening. We watched it. We never saw it before. And we realized our whole concept of money was wrong. And there's a lot of things we need to learn. And so he became our financial advisor. And over the course of that second year of the business to our 7th year, the only debt we owed was to ourselves. We were able to sell the business and get out of like the business debt, credit card debt. Because if you open up a cafe, it's very much intensive on cash. And so we were able to sell that and actually have an asset. And so that's how I met him 2 years, and why we're in this industry now, because we are influenced by it. Does that make sense? Did I answer your question?
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk about it a little bit, because I'm still reading up and I'm still getting familiar with the idea of bank on yourself. So can you just kind of give us maybe a high level overview of what that means? Because you just showed us proof that it worked for your business.
Yeah. So, you know how we think about investments and we put all this investments in 401ks and all this other stuff. Well, as entrepreneurs, what I've realized and thought about is the biggest investment is us, is myself, my business. I would say, like, within the podcast factory and some other things, your biggest ROI, return on investment, is going to be what you put into it and how you can leverage and grow that. And so for us, we didn't have a retirement strategy. We didn't have an employer matching. I mean, like, how would I match myself as a 401k? And that would be stupid. And so with him, we set up this policy, and it's weird because it's not what Dave Ramsey loves to hate. It's a whole life insurance policy. Well, he does love to hate it, but it's categorically different, using high cash value. So we increase the cash value and we increase a lot more savings. So we were trying to do savings and leverage our savings both to grow our business and realizing it's all one wallet to take care of those debts, right? So it's, if you have all your money in a 401k and you're in credit card debt, well, it's all one wallet. I don't care how much rate of return you get on your 401k. If you have 25% interest on your card, doesn't matter. You actually lost money. And so we were able to think through that and create a strategy. And so that's the bank on yourself idea, using whole life insurance, high cash value to create an asset. And again, realizing I'm my greatest asset. And if I'm gone, how's that going to affect my family? We insure our phones, we insure our cars, we should insure ourselves. And we shouldn't just insure it for a time, 30 years, and say, well, now I'm done with it. Well, wouldn't you need that insurance more when you're older? Like, isn't that the chances of it breaking going to happen in the later years as opposed to the earlier years? You know how the warranties on a car, you have insurance on a car, and then the car breaks 2 months and 1 year 2 years and 1 month after. And you're like, dude, what happened? The warranty's gone. I can't go and get it back because it's not a lifetime thing, right? We get frustrated by that, but it happens.
Yeah. I've been fascinated by the concept since you guys introduced it to me. And it's so funny. I talked to my insurance guy yesterday, the guy that I have my whole life policy with, and he's never heard of it. I'm like, like high cash value, something I can use other than insurance. And his mind was always insurance is only death benefit. But the way that you guys think about it, it's actually, I would say it's like a life benefit, isn't it?
Yeah. And it's all about the living benefit. Like, what we want to do is shrink the death benefit as much as possible to create a higher living benefit, and tax implications, right? Like, by using this, people think, well, hey, I'm putting it into tax deferred. What I think about with the 401k, people put in tax deferred. What do you think? Do you think taxes will go up or down in the future?
Well, they're likely to go up, but they're banking on the idea that they're going to be in a lower tax bracket.
Yeah, theoretically. But then I look and I've done math on this. I'm like, well, a lot of people are in higher. So then we don't know. That's the challenge. And so, like, how about as entrepreneurs, you can take 100% responsibility for everything, control what you can control, and how do you create leverage? And oftentimes, the rich people have leverage. And when an economic downturn happens, well, guess what I have? I have a whole lot of cash that I can leverage whenever its correction happens and make a lot more money. So it's all about how you think. It's not just about death benefits. It's about living. And there's only like 200 bank and yourself authorized advisors out there. So you're not going to see it from your State Farm or whatever else.
Yeah.
That's why you got to find me.
No, well, that's what I'm saying all these things that I learned from you guys. And he's like, and dude's made a living off insurance. Great guy. I mean, legacy insurance, man. Like, his dad was in insurance, and he's like, huh, what? And I'm like, oh no. And then I explained it to him, and he's just giving me back this thing. And I'm like, no, that's not the same concept. That is not the same thing at all. But, I feel lucky that I met you guys and you've introduced me to this concept. And who else is a big fan of this? Greg Smith is one of your people there that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Big time. I did not know that.
So Greg Smith actually sent me this book. Like, he gave it to me. Like, we just met through mutual connections with you. And it's by Garrett Gunderson. What Would the Rockefellers Do?
Yeah.
all about this whole concept. And I'm like, man, this is great. I've referred this book so many times. And if anybody, again, this is a mentor. I don't know Garrett Gunderson. I don't get any money if you go to his site and buy his books. But again, I've been listening to his videos and saying, hey, how do I learn from him? Same with Nelson Nash, who's like, he just passed away. This guy was 90 something years old who created the concept. And I'm like, man, this guy is he was like, I mean, you watch some of his videos, a really old guy, but you can take a lot from learning just online to those guys.
Excellent, man. So let's see. We've talked about all kinds of goodies here. Is there anything that maybe I didn't bring up that you were hoping we'd talk about?
Well, no, I don't think. I think one thing I would like even the people to realize is poverty, and why I'm in this financial world. Poverty is increasing. I'm seeing it increasing amongst seniors a lot. They didn't make a plan. They didn't make a strategy. And now they're in a financial poverty mindset. And what I really want to do is help people realize that poverty, it's financial. Yeah, we want to realize that. We want to fix that. We want to create a plan and a strategy around your money. But poverty isn't just money. It's in your relationship. Like if you are married, but you don't actually take your on a date or have that strategy set up, there could be a poverty in your marriage or in your family. And really be intentional is one of the things I've learned. And I was talking to my wife about this and saying, we're very intentional people. And as entrepreneurs, be intentional. I think you're very much in those lines, very intentional in how you market, how you send us books and things like that.
Oh, you think there's some thought behind that, eh? Not really. I'm just making stuff happen.
I was going to say, you sent me the book, The Alchemist.
Yes.
It was on my to-read list eventually, but I never had a copy of the book. So I was like, oh, I'll get it. It's a novel, so I'm not going to get to it very soon. But he says it's your personal legend.
Yes.
And like finding your personal legend, all of these little stories that I had was still leading to Grandma's Wealth Wisdom or this idea. This is just this, we've only been doing this business for a couple years. Where it's going to go from there, it's going to be bigger, but we were seeking that. And I felt like that book kind of captured the little stories in our life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was the right time. Yeah.
Yeah.
That is a great book. So, Brandon, people want to get to know you. It's Grandma's Wealth Wisdom podcast. What's the website?
grandmaswealthwisdom.com. It's really easy. grandmaswealthwisdom.com. And we're on Facebook, Twitter. You can find me at Brandon at Grandma's Wealth Wisdom. I don't think obviously I'm not grandma, but I think she can teach us a lot of things. And there's a lot of things historically that we can learn from the greatest generation. I also think sometimes intelligence skips a generation.
Yeah.
Possibly that happened. Ask your parents. Maybe not. You might want to edit this out.
No way. I love that one. grandmaswealthwisdom.com. Look for them on anywhere that you listen to podcasts. Grandma's Wealth Wisdom. Brandon and Amanda Neely. Brandon, thank you so much. It was so much fun to have you here. And we got to do it again, brother.
Awesome. This was great. Looking forward to talking to you soon.
Yes, sir.
This is the podcastfactory.com.